So the next kind of area that we wanted to address was like the pressure to perform. For me personally, there was always, my own personal pressure on myself. So any like stress that came from, you have to do this, you have to do that, was mostly my own doing. It was just like in my head. I was like, you have to do this.
Yeah.
But obviously like your parents are there to support you and, cheer you on and everything. This is again my own doing. I remember my mom showed me just recently actually, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
She showed me a sheet that said it was from when I was 12, and it said who like what did I want to do with the sport of swimming, and I said I wanted to be exactly like my dad because he was a really good swimmer in university and high school and everything. It had nothing to do with him at all, but just me putting that pressure on myself, like you have to be good, you have to be just like your dad.
Yeah.
Like that right there just strained me like no tomorrow, because you would go do a race or you would go do something, and it was like, if I'm not up to this standard, if I'm even a little lower, then I'm trash.
Yeah.
So that's where my my internal pressure kind of came from.
I think that goes well with the your comparative society thing that you were talking about last episode. Go check it out if you haven't already.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is dangerous once you start comparing yourself to people. It could be your dad, or it could be like Michael Phelps I'm comparing myself to, or maybe just like an older athlete in your sport. And once you start comparing yourself to them, because that's not you, so there's no point in comparing. Like
it's unrealistic.
I like it. Like I like the thing where it's the only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday.
Ooh, I like that.
Once you start comparing yourself, and it's on the topic of dads in general. My dad was probably the person that put the most pressure on me, and not in a bad way. Like he obviously meant so well, and like I have a great relationship with him. And but like he always expected the best from me because he knew what my potential was, and he wanted me to really get there because he believed in me a lot, and I think I'm really grateful for that. But like it's still a lot of pressure to he always expected best times, and if you've played any sport or done anything, like you can't win every race, you can't win every game. You can't have the best game of your life every game, and I can't get a best time in every single race I do.
So unrealistic.
It is unrealistic,
but that's the thought process.
There'd be meets kind of early in the season, and I would tell him how much time I added, and he'd get kind of mad, or like I'd be like ashamed to tell him, and over time, it kind of gets to you, and I think that's a big thing. Pressure can come in many different ways. Like for some people, it's their parents, it's other teammates, it's coaches, all that kind of stuff. And they all kind of add on together, and you can have like a lot of pressure on you. So that's why sometimes we see super good athletes, some of the best in the world in any sport, and the pressure gets to them, and they don't perform. LeBron James can suffer from pressure, like anybody.
Absolutely.
And pressure is a big thing. It can eat away at your mental health and kind of affect you negatively.
It's still hard, but it's easier to handle outside pressures. It's almost impossible to handle inside pressure, like when it's yourself pressuring yourself.
Yeah, so that's one of the worst pressures. So it's like there's all those external ones, as Harry said, and then the real one is the pressure from yourself is kind of what gets you the most.
Once you set your standards way too high, you're almost a goner.
Yeah, I did some reading up on this, and they kind of talked to all these high schoolers and university students, and there's this one girl actually in the States who said she kind of referred to them as sideline ghosts, referring to her parents. It's kind of like not the people like in the game specifically or herself, but more so the pressure from her parents specifically. Kind of and she always like thought they were looking over her, and kind of like the pressures that she was putting them on. And a lot of the time, parents meet their ego needs through their own kids,
right?
And we see that a ton, and they will often put their own child's well-being over that need for them to get their ego met and for the kid to succeed. It will look good, like on the outside, it won't look that bad as the parents like cheering them on and supporting them and wanting them to do well, and that's all good and everything. But it's kind of like behind the scenes, like they're not really caring too much about their own child's well-being and how they're doing and how tired they are, how they're doing mentally. And then I think like my parents never really asked like, how are you doing? Like how like there's always like, hey, how's it going? And like you say good.
Like what's up, buddy?
Or hey, Brady, how are you? Like it's always, but there's never really like there's a difference between like, hey, what's up, and then like, hey, Harry, like how are you? Like no, how, like how are you? And then it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's what you mean, and but you don't really get that a lot. And then this is when it's kind of like kids and teens, they can't really talk to their parents because they kind of get into that suck it up buttercup treatment. And my dad used to say that to me all the time. If I had like
That's a common one.
any complaint or anything wrong with me or anything, if I was tired or anything, he would just say suck it up buttercup, and then like I would just have to keep going because he wanted me to just do well, and maybe I guess he was trying to get his ego needs met. He's coming to golf tomorrow. We're getting drinks with him, so.
Yep.
So yeah, that's basically that.